All right, my friends, welcome to another episode of the RPG Backlog. This is our final episode of our Final Fantasy II arc because we have all completed the Pixel Remaster, and we're here to talk about it. It's Tom, it's Travis, it's me. So, where are we starting? Overall, thoughts? Digging in? What do you guys want to do?
Wait, we're supposed to complete it?
Shit. This is going to be an interesting podcast. Lopsided podcast.
No.
Do your homework.
You're the kid that didn't read the book in class.
Can't confirm, actually, on that one. I was the kid that didn't read it, but somehow I still pulled an A in the class. Don't ask me how. Overall thoughts, I enjoy this game. I can see where the original version of this would have been a sludge that people might not have enjoyed, and why it could have been so divisive with the leveling system. But with the benefits of time and some of the things that we've discussed previously, like having a map to know where the frick you're supposed to go the whole time, I found the game overall enjoyable. The story in this last little bit felt a little shoehorned in, if I'll be honest. I felt like the game should have ended after you beat the Emperor the first time, and everything else after that just kind of feels like it was phoned in. Either A, this typical 90s, we ran out of budget, holy crap, finish it, or hey, this isn't long enough, you need to figure out a way to make it longer. I don't know which one it is, but it just kind of this section felt that way for me.
Yeah. What about you, Tom?
I can see how you would get there. I think that, overall, if I had one note, the encounter rate needed to be just like half what it is.
Exactly.
Like, this game would basically no notes if they would, you know what I mean? Like,
yep.
It just made everything, and in particular the end where I felt like it got, and this, I don't really generally have a problem with this, but it got very linear, where it was like, hey, you got to go here, and then you got to go here, and then you got to go here. And there's not a lot of other things to do in between. And we also gave you the airship, so you can go there super fast, and you don't have to do anything else. And so it really did just feel like an absolute grind, because these last couple dungeons, Jade Passge and Pandemonium were huge. I mean, I didn't have the map here, but like 7 to 10 floors worth of stuff in any given one of them or something like that. And it was just a bunch of walking and fighting and walking and fighting and walking and fighting. And even the stuff that I used to kind of look forward to in that, like the chess, it's like, well, literally you go out of your way and you fight, 15 friggin' encounters, and it's like, oh, glad I have this ether. Like,
right.
Was really hurting for those here in the end game. So, yeah, I think that's sort of what I came away with is the encounter rate is a little bit too high. I feel like it messed with the pacing of this game. Other than that, I thought that the structure of the end game was pretty fun. The kind of twist of, you have to fight everybody again because they're in hell now. It didn't really bother me. I thought it was okay. Mostly because you see, what's his name? Who's the guy, the random dude that, remember when he killed Joseph with the booby trap?
Yeah. What was that
or something?
Name? I forgot that guy's name, but yes.
I'm going to find, I took a picture of him because I'm like,
back and looking.
Dude.
It's that guy again.
Oh man, I took way too many pictures. Where is he? Here he is. Borgin, that is his name. Zombie Borgin. I thought that was a really nice touch that he showed up, that you actually ran into him. And, you knew you were going to find the Emperor down there because that was sort of telegraphed. But the fact that Borgin was hanging out down there, too, is pretty cool. And this also leads a little bit, too, into what I think we talked about it last week. But was that on or off the pod? I can't remember. The alternate game in one of the remasters.
Oh, we talked about it on the podcast, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where you get to play as the spirits of
the four characters were killed, Joseph and Minwoo, and
that was a really, I don't know, if that was part of the, that was some shelved plan of theirs that then they got to come back and do, or if it was a tacked on thing afterwards. It was really, really clever because there was some effort set up here to, things that happened in the sort of real world main game did kind of have analogs and allegories in the the mirror realm of hell or whatever. So
yeah, that's kind of the thing that I, in thinking about my overall opinion of this game, it's maybe top two favorite Final Fantasy at this point. I really, really, really like this game, mostly because of the story. I know it's mostly bare bones, but what they were trying to attempt really felt, I don't know. I wasn't playing these kind of games at that time, but I'm thinking about like Dragon Quest, where the story isn't as complex, and that was a contemporary. I feel like they were really swinging with the story here.
absolutely.
And then, to have the game that comes after on the GBA, the Soul of Hope.
Yeah.
But okay, you say top two
that you
Final
really
Fantasy
built a
games.
relationship with.
I'm going to go back with how many Final Fantasy games have you played, though? So
I'm talking about the top two of the ones that I've played. Yes.
yeah, right. But that's what I'm getting at, because I mean that's the 7 remake.
7 for me is number 1.
But we're also talking about the remake, the ones made here in the last couple of years, not anything prior to that.
I take them all as one, because I'm talking about the story. So 7, the original, 7 remake, like the whole thing for me is 1. I've played 15, I've played 16, I've played 12, I've played 1, I've played 2. Of those, this one stands out to me as I enjoy this story way more than Final Fantasy 16 story. And that's, it surprises me because there's so much more depth in 16.
No, fair. I'm just because I'm kind of going through it because, yeah, that's fair. I just wanted to put that into context for people that might be like, wait, you could rile some people up by saying that about 2 and with some of the other.
My opinion is going to rile someone up. Jesus,
we're doing it for the clicks.
No, I'm just saying, like, I just know people who. That's not fair. It's like a gross generalization. There are some who are of the diehard Final Fantasy fans that will just jump down your throat if you say a certain thing is a better story than another one. And since I know that 2 has been kind of this divisive one, I wonder, that just could trigger people.
I personally don't care because this is our podcast.
I'm aware of that. I'm just saying I wanted that context around the number of. It's not like a jab, it's more of to where you kind of fit it in, because when you fit it in with those, I'm sitting there going, okay, fair, right? I don't have 15 under my belt, but if I think of like, I mean, I'm not too.
I haven't played 6. I haven't played 6, right? I haven't played 6. Playing 9. You haven't played 10, right? The ones that stand out as the best stories are probably 7, 10, and 6. I would say.
So, in case you were wondering, Den of Geek has Final Fantasies ranked by story.
Oh, here we go.
The top 5 are 12, 9, 6, 7, and Tactics.
Wow, if you bring Tactics in, that makes sense.
I'm sorry, Tactics takes the cake. I'm a diehard Final Fantasy 7 fan. Like, Larry knows that I love that game pretty much more than anything else, but Tactics takes the cake for me across the board in all Final Fantasy games.
On this list, anyways, 2 comes in as 15 out of 17.
So, unpopular opinion, but I feel like they were really swinging for something here, and I can see, how like 7 Remake and Rebirth have really fleshed out 7, even though 7 on its own was great anyways.
Sure.
Like, I feel like a remake of this could really flesh out what they were trying to do.
I was thinking that same thing as I was playing it. Specifically, what?
I wonder with Den of Geeks how much of they're able to separate the game from the story, right?
Yeah, that's true.
The article is specifically every story ranked worst to best. I haven't read it.
But I know that's what they call it, but whether or not they're able to do it is another thing completely. And I'm not saying that them in particular. I'm just saying people in general tend to have an emotional response to these games, not just around the story, but around the gameplay and how it affects them. For me, I can still remember the moment, and this is not a spoiler at this point in time, when Sephiroth kills Aerith. Right, like that shit is ingrained in my brain. That scene, that whole, I hear the first 3 notes of that song, and I am immediately hit by the feels on that. right? I don't think I can take the story away from the game in Final Fantasy VII because of the way it hit me. So that's why I'm wondering if you understand what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I understand what they're trying to go for, but whether or not they can, because people were so divisive on 2 to begin with, were they able to legitimately do it? Anyways.
On that list, Tom, is 1 below 2?
It is.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
Fair, right? Like,
1 is the lowest one.
Yeah, I can see that.
And maybe, and I don't know, this is kind of one of those interesting things where this is tough because I felt like 1 was a pretty solid.
No, it's a great game.
It's good. That's then maybe this is why this franchise has been so popular for so long, is because it's like, man, for rinky-dink little NES game, like they crammed a lot in, and we talked about that last season, and same thing here. Now, what I will say is that I think it's fair to kind of give them some points for context, right? Like, yes, I wish there was more, specifically with regards to, like, this was essentially our full experience of Leon was in this session.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Right. There's so much to flesh out there.
And they've done a little bit to set him up. Like, at this point that he's Maria's brother and is a Dark Lord or whatever he's called before that. Mm-hmm. But, like, you don't fight him. There was no battle with Dark Lord, right? He's there briefly in like 1 or 2 places earlier in the game. And I wish that he had been set up like fleshed out more as an antagonist, as like, oh, he's like the main bad guy you're trying to get, and then later on he joins you, and like that's the scene in the throne room where it was like, hey, we brought and the turn. We can talk about that too, right? Like, get through all of this stuff. Like, the Dark Lord assumes it, and then you go and you find him, and you're about to fight him, and then the Emperor shows up from beyond the veil. And then he's like, "Who? Okay, well, I guess let's team up because I can't own the Empire." Like, his turn from new ruler of the Empire to, I guess I'll help you guys out, was breathtakingly fast.
Well, and that's the thing that kind of sticks out to me. In 1 was like, we're going to redo D&D and we're going to make it this kind of interesting video game, but there's still a lot of theater of the mind that you're doing in D&D. Here, too, there are so many like little like bones that you can like see flesh hanging on, but the flesh isn't there. But there's, if you can fill some of that in yourself, like the idea that Leon at least felt like the antagonist for part of the game, then really wasn't, then he was fighting the Emperor, and there's so many kind of little turns there that if they were fleshed out would be really cool. There's a lot of like really neat story beats that don't have a lot of meat on the bones.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that.
And that's why, to me, that this part felt kind of, again, I go back to, is it the typical 90s, we're at a budget, dude. Chop, right? Like, it really has that feeling of so many other amazing RPGs of the time period that, I mean, I'll go on this forever. The original Xenogears, man, the first 2 discs are freaking amazing. The third disc sucks because it's just like, oh shit, we have no money, bam, bam, bam. Okay, we're up, right?
That's Final Fantasy 15. That's what it suffered from too.
Right. So it's, 90s. That's why I think Final Fantasy 7 and Tactics for me hit so hard, is because at no point does it feel like they are like, oh crap, we got to hurry up. And that's probably because they've established themselves at that point that they're allowed to have that leeway, which is kind of funny that when we get to 15, they ran into that same effing issue again. It's like, what the hell, man? But like Leon pivoting from being the leader to, I'm going to fight with you to kill the Emperor, and then Hilda's response of, wait, F you, you're the Black Knight, you're not on our side, wait, you're okay with it? Okay, fine, I'm okay with it. Like, seriously? Like, it would have made more sense if someone just randomly just attacked him in the throne room and there was just a brawl.
Yeah.
Right, but then they kind of touch on a little bit after the end of it where everyone's like, oh, we're all good and happy. And Leon's like, no, I can't be. And then walks away.
Yep.
So they knew that it was there. They just didn't do anything with it.
Well, I thought that was such a cool moment, too, where that was a little unexpected. Like, I feel like I was ready for the saccharine, like, oh, we're all good together. But no, there was like, really, there's still depth there. Like, no, I can't be with you after what I've done. I don't know, man.
But it just felt weird that he acknowledged it at that point, but was okay earlier just to pivot without not even saying anything. Literally, there was like no conversation with him pivoting.
Yeah, I can kind of see that, though, from a perspective like a soldier who's like, I'm here to fight. Okay, here's a fight. Like, this is what I can do. And now the fight's over. I got to think. No, I don't want to face this. I'm out of here.
And that would be more, I think this is where, to your point, Larry, earlier, if they had put a little more behind Leon earlier to where we had that context around him, it would have been a lot easier. But since there's our only context with him is literally him being like, haha, I'm the Emperor now. Oh shit, no, I'm not. Okay, I'm fighting with you. Oh shit, we killed him. I'm not cool with you guys. I'm out. Like that was literally his entire story. Sadly, that quick when they're.
Yeah, because he's not in the party. We don't learn anything about him. I'm thinking about, now that you mentioned that, you both have played 9, right?
Yes.
Long time ago.
Okay, because I'm currently playing through it right now, and there's the what is it called, like active time events or whatever, where like you're with your party, and then it like cuts to like a cutscene of someone else who's not with you.
Yep.
And it shows you like background and shit. Like that would have been so cool here, where like every once in a while you get a little interstitial of Leon fucking doing something weird shit, and then you get to know more about him.
Yeah.
Obviously they wouldn't do that this early, but that's, they figured that out later, I guess.
And again, like, I think your point is correct, though, right? That there's pieces of it here, right? Like, okay, there's parts of Leon's story that's a little awkward, but the fact that they don't all just ride off into the sunset, and there's some, he's having real moral quandaries about the decisions that he made that brought him to this point. Like, that's pretty heady stuff again for the time period and what you expected out of these games, and that was neat.
Well, I think even like just the last 10 minutes of this conversation, our ability to have that kind of conversation about pixel RPG from like 89 or whatever is it just speaks to the game. Like, as you said earlier, this has been a game that has, or a series that just has so many fans that are so passionate about it because they're so, each entry has been so good, and they were good from the beginning. There's a lot to talk about, and I'm just so happy that we're going back to experience the beginning of the series, because I've only played the later games. And there's just a lot of good stuff there. But the encounter rate, so all that was a good thing, right? The story for me was a good thing. The thing that I hated the most was the encounter rate. I cannot believe how it's like every 3 to 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So
3 to 5 tiles, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. So I'm lucky. I feel lucky that we were able to turn off the encounter completely. I turned them off by the end. I did not have encounters for 80% of these last 2 places. I turned it off most of the time.
I never turned them off.
Now we know.
Yeah, you guys are fucking insane.
I had sort of a hybrid thing where if I had to backtrack, I would let myself turn it off.
Yeah.
But if I was sort of, treading new ground and finding new stuff, and that the other reason is that I was actually really worried, as previously discussed. My dudes are incredibly underleveled compared to your guys.
Yeah, sure.
And so I was really worried that if I left them off, I was going to roll into the final boss and just like get the crap kicked out of me and not have fun with it.
Yeah.
I am pleased to report that did not happen.
So was Leon way underpowered when he joined your group or not?
Yes, he was. He had about half the HP of everybody else.
That's the other thing that really kind of ticks me off, honestly. You get a guy who's now supposedly the new leader of the freaking Empire, and he is a weak little bitch.
That's a good point. That is a good point.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of get it with some of the other characters that they don't want to give you an overpowered one. That's fine. But come on, at this point in time, they at least have got to give you a character that's on par with your exact party, because even the freaking guide that we have literally has a thing in it quoted there like, oh, equip him as you will, although he'll probably never be as useful as your other 3.
Yep.
That's freaking, like, I literally just read that off the thing. And that is sad that is the consensus from
What's strange is that wasn't the case for anybody up to this point. Not Minwoo, not Rickard, not Layla, not...
Yeah, Rickard was a badass.
Right? Like, all of those guys, it was... The leveling curve was such that by the time you were halfway through your arc with them, they were just, one of the guys kind of thing, right? Like, okay, you didn't invest in, like, teaching them a bunch of spells or, whatever, but, like, they were serviceable, right? Leon spent, I would say, a third of the time that I had him dead because he just kept getting his butt kicked by stuff, and I'd bring him back after the fact because it didn't cost very much to life him and then bring his health back up because he had so little of it. Like, his weapon stats got there eventually where he was doing comparable damage to the other people by the end, but he was kind of a glass cannon. It didn't take much to knock him out.
I ended up putting him in the back row, and then when I did my auto battles, I just had Maria chain cast Cures on him. Because I was like, that's the only way to keep his ass alive until he got big enough to where he didn't. And even then, there was a couple of times where he would take shots, and it's like, my character's taking 100 hit points, and all of a sudden he takes a shot and he goes, there goes 1.5k off of his 2k health. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
And this is another thing that you could sort of like, the technical limitations, but it would not have been hard to take every stat of the three main people in your party and average them and even round down, and just make that be his thing. Like, it would not be hard to just slot him in as someone comparable, if on the weaker side, to the rest of your party. So that is a really bizarre decision that I don't understand, particularly with him. You're right. In the story built up to have been so cool. And this is like the late game where you need good dudes to fight hard bad guys, and it's kind of weird.
You would think that he would have had something unique. Like, it would have been kind of a cool thing if maybe he's not the most badass one, but at least he has like a weapon that only you can get for only he has. And maybe it's something that's only he can equip, and that's fine, but something to make him stand out, because it's really hard to believe that this dude was going to take over the Empire when he's just, I sit there, you can sneeze on him and he's done for.
Yep.
Maybe that's why he bailed on his plan.
Yeah, he's like, I really can't hang with y'all.
Actually, he saw his out and he took it.
So even that pirate Layla is better than me. I'm out of here. Right. Sorry, I can't do this.
That was also kind of lame, I thought. It was good that she didn't have to die like everybody else that hangs out with you, but it was kind of lame that Layla's like, I'm just going to chill here in the throne room for the rest of the story, when she had been kind of an active participant, if a little generic, up to that point.
I thought the same thing with that goodbye sequence was kind of nice, and she eventually left, and I was like, okay, she's going to live her own life.
Yeah.
But man, I swear to God, when after Layla, Nellie, the daughter, I think it was Joseph's daughter, right?
Joseph's daughter.
Yeah, it talks about how he's looking down at you from the clouds, and you see a little bit of like a Joseph ghost come in and flicker in and flicker out. I was like, oh man, they're really hitting something here. It's not super successful, but they're really trying on tugging on the heartstrings.
Show up. That's what at some point near the end, when Leon joins you, not the end, but the point when Leon joins you, like Maria's sort of meditating on, Joseph, Minwoo, Sid. We didn't even talk about Sid.
Exactly.
Too. Rickard. They're all dead. Like, you've lost a bunch of your friends throughout this. So, you said, they're trying.
Well, in Sid's language, or his text when he was dying, he's like, I'm going to give you the airship, but only to borrow. And then I was like, oh, wow, he's not dying. And then, he's dead. I was like, oh, shit. That was kind of a cool way to do that.
Man.
It did. It really did. That's why I swear to God, I want a remake of this so badly, because they can really build it out.
Oh. So I want to drag the conversation back a little bit to my recurring bit, which I like to call Tom doesn't properly engage with the mechanics of this game and is somehow not punished for it. You remember there was a whole subplot where we had to go and get the ultimate magic, Ultima?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, beat the game having never taught it to anyone.
You had it in your inventory? Well,
at that point, I was using... I can't remember who. It was one of the... You had to fight, the... excuse me. The, lieutenants in hell or whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them had were highly resistant to physical attacks, so you had to use magic, which I had not bothered to teach Leon any decent magic. So I was just looking for stuff, because you can, if you use the tomes like items, they cast like decently high level.
Yeah, like 6, 7, or 8, something like that.
And I was just like, well, whatever. What can I throw at him? But I'm scrolling through it. It's like Ultima Tome. So what's this doing here? Oh no, I never used it.
I think I used it once. Did you use it, Trav?
Yeah, I ended up using it, but I was in halfway through the Jade Passage when I was looking through my shit and I saw it. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So I'm teaching that to my character, and then I started chain casting that shit to get it up. I got up to level 8 before I got to the final boss, and I thank God I did, because everything else I'm hitting for 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 physical damage. Get to him, it's like 100. 200. I'm like, oh, yeah. God, son of a... And then I bust out Ultima, and then it started taking out, because that was the other thing is something else. Other spells that were doing were healing his butt. And I was like, what the actual F?
Yeah, this is the like Hell Emperor at the end, right?
Yeah, like certain spells were like, I cast like Blizzard on it and it healed them. I'm like, okay, that's bullshit. Cast fire on him, that healed him. Cast freaking thunder on him, that healed him. So I was like, Ultima's taking 1,000 hit points a chop. So frick it, I'm going to chain cast that one on him while I use, Leon to tickle him and Furion to chip away, a couple hundred health each round, and hopefully I whittle him down. At no point in time was I afraid of dying, but it was just kind of a battle of attrition, basically, sitting there slowly chipping away at him until he finally died.
That's what... Oh, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
I was going to say, that's mostly what I did, too. I had the only decent spell that I had taught. The Furion had, was it Flare?
Flare.
Like combustion. Yeah. That's like a non-elemental, but like still damaging magic. I had that at like 7 or something like that. And it was doing a couple hundred in a swing. And then I don't think I think you're thinking of somebody else who was healing them, because I was using like Thunder 8 and Fire 8 and stuff like that. And they didn't do particularly well, but they weren't healing him. This is the only thing that the Emperor absorbs is death. And he's just
resistant. Maybe it was the dragon that I was doing that was healing.
There was a dragon in there, one of those guys, and it was like more than half of the elements he did absorb. And I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah, I just remember that it wasn't... Maybe it was that where I did one of them, and it did, like, even though it was a level 8, it did, like, it tickled him, like, the melees. And then I noticed that Ultima was doing 1,000 a shot. So I was like, okay, well, I guess that's just going to be how I deal with this, because... nothing else seems to be a good option.
Maria's cure for me was good enough that it covered like 60 or 70% of whatever he had like I can't remember what his attacks were. Was it Cyclone or something like that? What was his? I can't remember what his magic was.
It was the star or something or other, like through a giant meteor.
Yeah, it was basically a meteor. Yeah, Starfall maybe it was called. But anyways, I could heal like more than half of that. And so I just kept healing people and just kind of kept chunking away. And he went down harder than most. But like you said, kind of like you said, it was never in any serious danger of dying, which is crazy. Another fun thing to finish out my segment of failing to engage with meaningful mechanics in Final Fantasy II. You guys remember, I think we talked about it last week, that I missed getting the Blood Sword.
Yep.
The Blood Sword features prominently in many strategies for how you beat some of the hardest people in the game.
It does, which is what as soon as I got it, I equipped it. And so I have a confession to make. I did not beat Final Fantasy II.
No.
My daughter did. I got to the my daughter. We came in. We had played we were playing Wind Waker Randomizer in the garage, and we beat Ganon. And then I came in. I was like, "Oh, I'm going to finish Final Fantasy II. Do you want to watch?" We had like half an hour for dinner, so I was finishing the last part of Pandemonium and get to the Emperor. And she's like, "I want to play." Okay, why don't you play against the Emperor? See how it goes. I was fully expecting it not to go well, but then the Blood Sword, as you say, features in a lot of those strategies. The Blood Sword takes off about 5,000 hit points per hit.
Well, it's a percentage, right?
I don't know. It would show the numbers, so it'd be 5,000.
What the frick? Because when I tried it,
it's a percentage of their hit points. So the more they have, the more it does.
Dude, so I tried that a couple fights beforehand, and it was doing so little damage compared to my other weapons that I shelved it.
It does shit damage against some enemies, but against the bosses specifically in this last run, it just wipes them out.
The blood sword does 1/16 of their hit points.
There you go.
So in this case, that would have been he only didn't have that much. It was 15K.
Yeah, and that sword. I mean, I'll have to go back and do the video because I swear to God, the chunk was 5,000, which is not 1/16 of 15K. So that's it.
You've had some other thing going on it. I don't know, but that's what the blood sword. That's its deal.
I mean, it just trivializes the fight, like our guide says. It trivializes the fight. It really does.
Yep.
So my daughter, spent probably 5 minutes or so, or a little bit less actually, and she beat it. I was like, well, shit, okay, you just beat Final Fantasy 2. Great.
I also had some weird. Did you guys notice that when he was doing attacks, it would also hurt himself sometimes?
I did notice that. Not only the Emperor, I thought it was someone else too, where like there was an attack and they would hit us.
I saw it a couple of other times. And
yeah, exactly.
Some like area of effect or something like that. Where,
yeah, maybe.
I also thought that was weird, but oh yeah, there's some cool guys in here. Tiamat, Azarath. These are all real Beelzebub, who looks like a giant nasty fly. Those are all like real from, I don't know, what is it, some like apocryphal biblical text or whatever, but those are like all real names of demons from hell sort of thing, which I thought was a nice touch.
Right. I half expected Baal to pop up somewhere, or Diablo.
Yeah. I think it was that Tiamat guy. That was the one that absorbed most elemental magic and healed him, which sucked. I also found the layout of Pandemonium to be really confusing. Like I was trying to walk under those arches and stuff like that. It took me a long time to learn what to bother with and what to not. And it was making me even more mad because the encounter rate is so damn high.
Right, and that's when we were talking about it earlier about the encounter rate and the frustration of this. That was one thing because again, I had a map up the whole freaking time. I never figured out what the identifier was on which archways you could actually walk through versus which archways were just a haha screw you type of situation. And I don't know if there was an identifier, but if there wasn't, that's a really effed up way to stretch this out. But yeah.
Yep.
So overall, pretty good game. Pretty some depth to it. I know it's maligned because of the leveling system, but it didn't bother me that much, to be honest.
It didn't bother me either. And again, that maybe that's the coda of all of this, is that I felt like that made this game easier.
It's certainly simplified the leveling system.
Whatever you did, you got good at, right?
Yeah, right.
And so there was nothing was ever wasted. If you were casting spells, your spells were getting better. If you were doing physical attacks, that was getting better. I think the only way you could have messed this up was to like constantly switch your weapon type, maybe, and not commit to any one thing. But then it doesn't go anywhere. Like it would. The weapons maybe is as bad, but the spells I guess maybe if you tried to teach everybody every spell and you never used them, kind of thing. I suppose that's how you could have messed it up.
But there's a limit on how many spells they get.
Yep.
Overall, the game I enjoy. There is enough things to nitpick on that I can see when all those things combined create an issue.
I would say that it probably bodes well for the rest of the series, though, if this is the low point odd duck that everybody thinks sucks.
That's a good point. That's a good point, because moving into 3, it's the first one that offers jobs. 4 is the first one that had a really, I think, a story that stuck with people. I don't know much about 5, but then 6 obviously is like top of Mount Rushmore, with 7 pretty much, and 10, I guess. Yeah, man, there's like so much to come ahead of us. That's great.
I was going to say 8's another redheaded stepchild.
That's a good point. With Squall and the Gunblade.
Again, and I think I'm seeing kind of a trend here, right? So this one, it tried something new. And granted, it's only the second one, but in a way, it's kind of the third one, as we found out, previously with the other.
Oh, yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
Right? It tried something completely different from the mold with the leveling system. It's like, okay, let's try something new. And I think what happened with 8 was the same thing as like 7 tried something new with the materia system. As far as I know, that's the only time that's ever been used, and it was universally praised. So then they tried something new with the draw system, and it was universally bashed.
Yep.
So, and I think that's the same thing where I noticed with 8 and 2 is they tried something completely new, unhinged, never thought of before in any way, shape, size, or form. And on paper, it sounds cool. Because if you think about it, the way they do the level system, it sounds kind of cool. Like, hey, your skills level up, not your character. You use them, you get stronger. You don't use them, they don't improve. As opposed to you just generally getting stronger. Like that as a concept sounds cool, but once you implement it, not as good as you would think.
Well, it takes away the customizability, which I think people like to dig into the crunchiness of some of that. And that's not something you get here. But I still think your choice of what you do, like Tom said, like builds the things that, you're good at.
Yes, but you do have the customizability. You choose which weapons they level up. You choose what skills they use. Like, for example, both you have Maria as your primary caster, right? Did anybody else really become a caster beyond that?
I mean, Guy was my primary caster.
Yeah, Maria and Furion were my... Furion was kind of a hybrid. He did some casting and a lot of physical.
Okay, and then did either one of you dual wield with any of your characters?
Yeah, Furion.
At the very end, yeah, I dual wielded with everybody because I needed the hit points by the end.
Right. So, I mean, that's the thing. I started dual wielding a long time ago because I put forth the effort to customize mine to get their evasion up. I think, Tom, you were more like heavy armor, negate the damage that way, whereas mine were very much light armor, medium armor, and just not get hit at all. Right. Guy was my primary caster. Maria was just my healer. She didn't do any healer and buffer. That was her job. And then Furion was all melee. Guy was I used knives with him, and the Ripper knives, I got 2 of them. That became a godsend for me because they consistently did 200 damage no matter what. Even characters where he would hit and it was 0 because I didn't have the skill and I didn't crit them.
You get it on the backside.
I was looking at the 200 on the back end.
That was awesome.
Every time. So I was like, sweet, this is great because now when these guys negate my ability to do, even the Emperor who was resistant to freaking melee, I tried it just for once with him and he did no damage on the initial but did 200 with each one of his Rippers. So it was great, So I think there was a lot of customization. It just wasn't in the way that people expected it to be.
So speaking of dual wielding, I'm just reading through here in case you were curious. If we had been playing the NES version of this, you could get 2 blood swords.
Oh, hello. Weak against small enemies, but just brutalize a boss.
Yeah, they took that out for the remasters.
I think you're right, Travis. I think the customizability wasn't probably what everyone expected, especially coming out of 1. And maybe some other things that were contemporaries like Dragon Quest or whatever else. But yeah, there was quite a bit of customizability. I think that's right. In my view, boy, good stuff. So 3 next, huh?
I already installed it.
Nice. Gonna say yes then. We're moving on to 3. We can talk off mic about the schedule, but we'll probably have something in between Final Fantasy 2 and when 3 starts. But look forward to us continuing our Pixel remaster of moving on to Final Fantasy 3. Anything else for the good of the podcast before we sign off, guys?
I'm good. So far, I recommend people, if you haven't played the Final Fantasies, grab the remaster. 1 and 2 so far are very much worth the time.
Agree. Tom, anything else?
Pour one out for my boy Rickard. There was a sick Wyvern escape there at a key moment. I thought that looked really good in the Pixel remaster, even if it was a little hokey. It looked I looked it up while we were talking. I looked it up what the NES version looked like. Is super funny. A little dragon sprite just walks over everyone and then walks off the screen.
That's funny.
But yeah,
Rickard was great.
This was a treat. I thought the end game more or less did this justice, and the quality level that we were enjoying was consistent throughout. So yeah, it was fun.
All right, folks. Well, thanks so much for listening. We'll be back. And if you like our podcast, please rate it. Podcast service of choice that you use, and tell a friend. And we'll see you another time.